Hey guys, it's Wednesday still, and I'm sure by now, hopefully, you know what that means. It's comic reviewing time. Today, the 31st of July, is a fifth week, which means that um, it's annuals time, basically. Just from my experience, most fifth weeks in a month are time for special comics and annuals and stuff like that. Starting off, we have Adventure Time. What is it called? 2013 Summer Special. It's basically the first mirrored image in a camera. The first annual sort of thing that they're doing. It's sort of not really an annual, it's a summer special. Whatever. Okay. So, unlike the annual, actually, like the proper Adventure Time annual, which I'm pretty sure I reviewed, this is a bunch of short stories. Not a proper one-story comic, but a little anthology of stories written and drawn by different people about different characters doing different things, and they are all very good. We got two Finn and Jake stories. We got a Marceline and Bubblegum Princess story, and we got a Fiona and Cake story. So, four very neat stories, all of them very well done. My favorite is the Bubblegum and Marceline one, but Marceline is my favorite character in the franchise, so what you gonna do? But they're all very good, little short comics. I say this every time an Adventure Time comic comes up. If you're a fan of the show, pick it up. It's just as high quality as the show. If you're not a fan of either, you really should be, and get started. Get into Adventure Time. You won't regret it. So now, moving on, we got Superman Annual number 2, and written by Scott Lobdell, who I've usually been kind of meh about, but this is actually a very good issue. I don't know what it is. Maybe Scott Lobdell just can't write Superman, but he does a pretty good Lois, and this is a Lois-centric story, narrated by her. She does most of the action. Superman's absent for most of the story. In fact, showing up more as Clark Kent, and even then only as someone Lois talks to rather than a kind of character. And it's very good. The main story is Lois is investigating the disappearance of the 20 people that happened all the way back in the first arc of Action Comics, I think, when Brainiac attacked Metropolis and shrunk it down and Superman saved everyone. So it ties all the way back with that, as does the current Superman arc. And it's basically what Lois has been doing all this time. She's still the world's greatest journalist. If Batman's the world's greatest detective, then I would say Lois Lane is the world's greatest journalist. And it starts in medias res. Actually, like a lot of kind of Silver Age Superman comics, or rather, Superman's wife Lois Lane comics with, "My name is Lois Lane, I've just been murdered." And that's probably not intentional, but I drew that connection. Like, as soon as I opened it up, I drew that connection. This is just a Silver Age comic. It's not, of course, but I don't know. I like it. And so it tells her how this investigation of hers into the disappearing people got her murdered, and it ties in with Brainiac, it ties in a little with Superman, but it really mainly is just a Lois Lane investigative journalism story, and it's actually very well told. It's very well paced, and it's a one-off. I mean, most annuals are, this one included. I'd pick it up if you're a fan of Superman, if you're a fan of Lois, if you're a fan of comics, if you're a fan of journalism. I'd pick it up. I enjoyed it. Moving on, going at a pretty steady clip here. Speaking of which, The Flash Annual number 2. And this is from the cover you can tell, a Flash and Green Lantern story. So, being honest here, I've decided to stop picking up Green Lantern, and I was enjoying it, but it didn't really hook me. Um, so I just decided to stop picking it up just to save, $4 a month or however much it is. It's trivial, yeah, but that's half a lunch. And maybe I'll start picking it up if I hear good things about how it's going. Anyway, this is kind of tying into that more than the Flash, I'd say, because in the Flash comics, if you've been keeping up with the comics or my reviews, which I hope you're watching, you know that he's dealing with Reverse Flash right now. But in this comic, he's just kind of chilling with Hal Jordan. And in the middle of this chilling, as you can see just from the front page, there's a big kabow, and they end up on the Arena World, which is kind of like Warworld, I'm guessing, but Mongol isn't in this comic at all. And then we flash back to a few years ago, where we find out how Hal Jordan and Barry Allen first met. And it's again, a very enjoyable story about the meeting of these two superheroes and how they became kind of best friends. And it's really neat. It starts with Flash, Barry Allen, kind of his early days, both on the police and as the Flash, investigating the kidnappings of a whole bunch of children, and runs into Hal Jordan, who's investigating the same case, and yada yada yada. They discover who each other is through a pretty humorous dialogue, and they end up on Arena World. And then they rescue all the children, and we find out why they're back in Arena World all these years later, and get some character development. They each learn about what makes them special aside from their powers, and as you can see on the cover, Flash tries out the Green Lantern ring, and this actually happens in the book. Pretty neat. And yeah, it's nice. I don't want to say buddy cop, but it's that sort of dynamic with these two. It's a nice, just buddy superhero comic. If you like the Flash, if you like the Green Lantern, I'd pick it up. Moving right on, and we are getting into the always dense Batman section of these review videos, because there's always like 3 Batman comics come out every week. So starting with Detective Comics Annual number 2. So this is actually, well, it's an annual, it's a standalone. I forget what they're doing, the Detective Comics right now. I forget the current arc. It's not coming to me, tip of my tongue, but, not enough. Anyway, so here we have the introduction, or the reintroduction of a villain. I think it's their first time being introduced in the New 52 universe, and she never really made much of an impact in the old universe. But I'm not going to spoil who it is, because it's kind of a big part of the story. It is, after all, Detective Comics. But basically, there's a new villain in town who's stealing other people's identities, and Batman, as you can see by the splash image, is very eager to stop him, her, it. Whoever is stealing, I already said it's a her, so it's a her that steals other people's identities. And they really do hint at it very strong. There's a lot of foreshadowing if you are picking it up and you're... Oh, that's right. Wrath is the current Detective Comics arc. He's in it very little, barely any comic, not screen time, comic time here. But it's mostly a proper detective story. It's Batman trying to discover who this Jane Doe is, and then there's a twist. We think we know who it is, and it's not who we think it is, and it's somebody else. And then, after the whole detective work and Batman kidnaps the crook, spoiler alert, we see what happens to her. And there's very little action, actually, in the first part of this. Well, in this whole comic, there's very little action, very little Batman beating people up. More Batman just, doing, like, detective-y Batman stuff. But then after that, after the story proper, we get we get a look into Arkham Asylum and how this patient is being treated, and how her treatment is affecting the doctors around her and the people around her, how they're reacting to her presence in Arkham Asylum. And I like this. I just like these trips into Arkham Asylum. I really do, and it's not just me, but the villains are some of the most interesting parts of the Batman mythos. And when you really kind of get into their mind in these Asylum bits, they're very neat. And then we see Harvey Bullock is actually a very big player in this comic. So now we see at the very end, the last little part of this annual, we kind of see how Harvey is dealing with the whole thing regarding the villain, what the villain did to him personally, and the aftermath. And it's chilling. And actually, it's the sort of thing that makes you kind of go, ugh, you know, and make you think, what if it happened to you? So, and again, a very good book. The annuals are always a kind of a step up from the usual fare we get, which is nice. I enjoy it because they're, you know, especially Scott Lobdell, he really knocked it out of the park with Superman. But moving on, we get the second Batman comic of today, which is just Batman Annual number 2. Snyder is credited on the front. He's the first credit, but apparently he was more producer than director, so to speak, on this comic. And again, we get another trip in Arkham. And this is, if I remember correctly, yeah, this is just one story, unlike some of the other annuals, which are 2. This is one story. Introduces a new villain, I think. I don't remember her anywhere. But a new villain into the Batman mythos. Arkham Asylum's first patient. Well, one of the first, an early patient, very old patient of Arkham Asylum. And she decides to make her move when Batman is testing the asylum's new security. The kind of framing device for the story is there's a new orderly. It's his first night in Arkham. And this is the night they decide to test out the new wing of the Arkham Asylum. Batman is brought in to try and escape, you know, see if any of the villains will be able to do it. So we kind of see most of this through the orderly's eyes. And it's, I mean, I drew parallels in my head to the Arkham Asylum video game, you know, because you have the One Night in Arkham. Of course, there's Serious House on Serious Earth, which I think this book draws some inspiration from. But it's a story more kind of like Serious House on Serious Earth of how Batman affects the inmates in the asylum and how he's part of the DNA of the asylum now by bringing in all these super criminals. The main conceit is that the villain in this book was in the asylum before Batman was around, and she saw the place transform from a proper mental institution where focus was on curing people into more of the prison that it is today. And it's about, funnily enough, and I think Snyder likes doing this, he likes making these kind of play on words with his story devices, but the book is about asylum as a concept. It's about Arkham Asylum, asylum as a mental institution, and then asylum in terms of kind of like political asylum, like safety, like you know, being somewhere you can call home, somewhere you can get better, somewhere safe. And it plays with all of these themes very well. And I mean, the villain is sympathetic. We get kind of that whole switcheroo that some people do with Batman, where they make him the instigator of all the crime. And especially in this one, where he, you know, you really kind of consider what he's done to Arkham Asylum, what Arkham Asylum has become, in large part thanks to him and him bringing in these super criminals here. So, very good book. Very different from what's happening in Batman right now, but very good all the same. I'd recommend it again. Now we're going to take a break from Batman for a while. We're going to continue with Snyder with The Wake number 3. Snyder's Vertigo tale about killer mermaids. I think those are his own words. And in this, the action really starts to pick up. So they set up this whole kind of aliens premise where we have a bunch of people locked in a an environment miles from civilization, and and there's this one alien-ish creature kind of hunting them, playing with their minds and all that. And so here we really get the chest burster scene. It starts off with the main character whose name I always forget. I will find out in a second. Cruz. No, not Cruz. What's her name? Not Meeks. God damn it. What is people... They don't say name. Parker. No, Parker's her son. God damn it. Whatever. Main character. This lady. Starts off with her being mentally attacked by the alien before things all fall to shit. Basically, this is the comic where the alien escapes and starts wreaking havoc. And the survivors are left to survive with very few weapons and resources. And at the end, things escalate. So this is the chase bit of the aliens formula. This is the bit. Alien escapes, small group of survivors running away from a threat they can't possibly comprehend right now. And things are only getting worse. And things will continue to get worse in issue 4, I'm sure. 4, I hope I didn't do 5, that would be embarrassing. So, again, Snyder is one of my favorite writers right now. And if you aren't reading him, if you're not reading Batman, if you're not reading this, pick up both. Pick up this, pick up the last 2 issues of this, pick up all of Batman if you can. Definitely worth a read. If you like aliens, pick this up, definitely. Very strong alien vibe. And now we get to the final comic of the review. A comic that is the epic conclusion, so to speak. We have Batman Incorporated, number 13, Grant Morrison's last comic of the saga. Really, this is the end of the Morrison era. And it doesn't quite go out with a bang, but it goes out memorably. Last issue left off with Talia sneaking into the Batcave and challenging Bruce to a duel. This issue we find out exactly how that went. And, I mean, something Morrison's been known to do is grab from a lot of the mythos. He cherry picks, he doesn't prune, he considers everything canon, and he picks out what he's going to use, and he uses a lot. And so this is one of the very few times where we see Morrison tie up all the loose ends that he possibly can. And he does it. I don't want to spoil too much because it is the end of his run. But needless to say, we get a very fitting conclusion to Batman Incorporated and to just Morrison's run in general. We get... And he doesn't tie up all the loose ends because it's a comic and, you know, other writers are going to take this somewhere. You know, the character and stuff. But it is very interesting. We find out what happens between Batman and Talia. We find out more about the relationship between Jim Gordon and Bruce Wayne, how they have a relationship aside from Batman. Found out how Batman's kind of going to try and recover from all the loss he's had. It's tying up a lot of loose ends, and it ties them up really well. If you've been following Morrison's run on Batman at all, especially if you've been just reading Batman Incorporated since the reboot, you kind of have to pick this up. It is definitely worth it. There are some shades. There's actually a lot of kind of the Dark Knight Rises in here, just in terms of sequence of events. And, well, of course, you got Talia, you got Bruce. You got something else that happens at the end that basically comes out of Dark Knight Rises. But, if anything, the end is a little... Because this isn't, as you can see, this isn't like a extra-sized comic. So the end of everything, well, the end of the Bruce Talia thing feels a bit rushed, feels a bit quick, a little unsatisfying. But the last few pages of the comics definitely open something up for someone, hopefully someone talented to follow and pick up on. And I just have to say, it's a fitting end for Morrison's run. I, for one, have enjoyed a lot of what he did. I know he has his detractors, but, I mean, this was a good book. It was a very good conclusion, and I wish... I mean, it doesn't mean anything, because who the fuck am I, but, I hope... I wish Morrison the best. He did a great job. I want to congratulate him. Again, I'm a nobody, so it doesn't really mean anything, but I really do, and this was a great way to end it. So... that's it for this week. Not much to go on. To go off on, I'd recommend all the books here. They were all fabulous. Pick them all up. I think maybe this might become a collector's edition one day. I doubt it, because they publish billions of these things now, so you really can't, none of them are really going to become collector's items like Action Comics #1 from 1938 or whatever, but, it's something. End of an era. And that's how we're ending this. End of an era. End of an era! Good. See you next week.